Therapy roulette, consent to vent. Trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy roulette, consent to vent. If you don't have problems, then you're likely repressing shit and you should find a therapist who's not me.
Welcome back to Therapy Roulette. This week we're joined by a repeat guest, Gabe Mollica. He is a stand-up comic, performer, storyteller based in New York. Gabe, welcome back.
Thank you, Michele. It's very exciting to be back. You got to give the people what they want.
They've been high demand. Your episode is one of the most downloaded, so people.
Oh, look at that.
People love you.
Yeah, well, I'll keep sharing it with my my rabid fans.
I mean, I know you're at least Instagram famous, right? So you got a fan base.
Yeah, I have one Facebook post that 2 million people saw making fun of the Olive Garden. No, Cheesecake Factory.
Mm-hmm.
So most people, I got the only comments I get from strangers are like, "Hey, like I posted this thing about their gross Cheesecake Factory chicken parm where they like flattened out a piece of chicken parm and they put pasta on top of it." And I made a joke about it, and like 2 million people saw it. And then randomly, I'll get messages from teenagers. They're like, "Are you gonna eat that thing?" I'm like, "No." Like, it's very bizarre.
Did you make a meme? Is that what it's called?
I guess so. I made a tweet, and the tweet like did fine on Twitter, and then I took a screenshot and put it on Instagram. And I don't know, hundreds of thousands of likes later. I don't even know how that happened, really.
That's pretty remarkable. Also, like, to do anything on Twitter these days, like, good on you.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I'm a visual person, even though I don't have that many followers. What did I say? I said America can't be great until we hold Cheesecake Factory accountable for their crimes. And then there was a picture of their gross food. And then, okay, I'm being generous to myself. 72,000 people liked it, but 2 million people saw it. Just insane.
So it shows you the views. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was something. It's so funny. Like Twitter jokes are not a thing that like I'm not famous on Twitter, but I like making them.
No one's famous on Twitter. Like,
that's true.
You're there for the deep cuts.
But you know what? It's nice.
Get a small hit of dopamine every once in a while.
Yes, that's what it is. It's like I want to be rewarded for like a random thought I had by like a few people. That's kind of nice. And then sometimes, every once in a while, it will turn into either a joke on Instagram that gets like some traction, or it'll turn into a stand-up bit, or I'll throw it in a packet or something where I'll look back. I'm like, oh, have I ever made a joke about, I don't know, legalizing marijuana or something? And I'll search it and I'll be like, oh, I do have like a take or a bit on this, and then I'll throw it in somewhere. So that has happened in the past too.
But your Twitter feed is your database. You're like, I must have tweeted if I had a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll search my name and then like a keyword sometimes, and or I'll be like, have I tweeted this already? And that happens a lot too, where it's like I only have so many thoughts, so I'll Google something and I'll be like,
I like that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Twitter used to be my favorite. I think I'm starting to be like anti-Twitter, but it's all popular opinion. I could change this opinion soon.
Yeah. I feel like it used to be better. There was a time when people could get like really hired off of Twitter. I feel like that's kind of over, but maybe not. Fingers crossed.
All the platforms fade. Like, I'm waiting for TikTok to die out so I can jump on the next one.
Sure. No, I mean, I totally feel that way. We can talk about this a little bit, but like during the pandemic, a lot of comics got big, like making either like posting stand-up clips or like making videos and characters. And I was just like pretty depressed during the pandemic and like was not in a place to emotionally like become a content factory. Like I made like probably like 2 or 3 videos and some of them did really well.
Nice.
I had an Ellen video that like did okay, but like I just didn't have it in me to like become a content factory machine. Like I need momentum and enthusiasm and people like to go out and be doing stand-up to feel creative all the time. And so I just didn't have it in me. I don't know if you felt similarly.
Oh yeah, I know at least one person who went viral and got famous and, you know, is a successful comic now, and that person is now blocked in my feed. So I don't need that in my life, that constant reminder. But yeah, the pandemic for me was soul searching. I did a lot of therapy, actually, worked on my relationship a lot. So I was like growing up during the pandemic, and comedy was my driving force pre-pandemic. So now I'm 2 years later trying to get back into it. But I tried to fix my mental health during the pandemic. So no content really, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's like the human stuff.
Hmm.
And hopefully that stuff
I think
pays more
so.
dividends, later in your life. Um,
I mean, I did therapy roulette, so
that's right.
I watched
Yeah.
a podcast. That was a big goal.
Yeah. That's a huge thing. It's a very human thing. I feel like
Mhm.
making
I wasn't
making
trying
front
to go
facing
viral.
videos. Yeah. Making front facing videos, like it can be fun. And like when you have a good idea, it's like really exciting because you're pumped up about it.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I think a podcast is a very human, communicative endeavor. And yeah, I think in some ways it goes hand in hand in therapy. I definitely, every time I'm a podcast guest, I'm like, oh yeah, I should have one of these. This is so satisfying.
This is my legacy. This is what I'm leaving behind.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure.
Because oh no, my boyfriend closed the door. It's gonna get so hot. Ah. All right, if I start sweating, it's because the AC isn't good.
Oh no. Yeah. If you want to take a minute and open doors, go bananas.
I'll suffer. I'll suffer. It's good. It's good for the brain. But yeah, I think my podcast was a good role for me, and then the YouTube hits that I'll crank out in the future. I think those have to be pre-planned a lot, so they're coming. I'll let you
For
know when they're
sure.
out.
Yeah, absolutely. Believe me. I mean, like I didn't get into comedy to become a video editor, and yet I find myself doing that
But
constantly. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So that's like another plan of mine, which is I'm kind of backlogging stand-up jokes to put out, but it's exhausting. I can't like put out a video, like record a video, edit it, make it perfect, throw in some graphics and sound, post it, and then like have nothing left. So my goal right now is I'm building this kind of like bank of clips for Instagram so that during the
smart.
Fringe this summer I'm going to post a clip a day. Just like I have this bank, um as opposed like I can't chop wood and burn it at the same time, if that makes sense. I need a big pile of wood is the analogy that I've been kind of using.
Yeah, you need that
Um
stockpile. That's how you do it. Like they say, do it every day, post a TikTok a day, an Instagram a day. And I'm like, you know how hard it is for me to do this monthly?
yeah,
I'm not doing this daily. But you have to get big and get some traction.
totally. They reward you being mentally
Unstable.
unstable. Yeah, that's like part of that's like it's what they reward. I mean, like they design what gets seen and what doesn't get seen.
Hmm.
Um and
That algorithm.
yeah, that algorithm, which is like a word we use to describe, for me it's like a thing that I don't understand. So I just use it to be like, well, it's the algorithm's fault, but I don't really know like how it works or what it does. I just know that they do. You get the worst people on the planet being like, you got to post 3 TikToks a day. And I'm like, how about I go for a walk and call a friend? Like that seems like a much better use of my time.
How about I check in on myself?
Yeah. And I absolutely. And it's weird. I've been talking about this with some friends. Like in comedy, there's kind of always been the do-it-yourself model. But there's also the um get approval from the industry model, which is like you get an agent and a manager, you write for a big TV show, you get on a TV show, like all those things. And I kind of like I don't know how my comedy career will like continue, but I like whatever lane I end up in, like I guess I'll be fine with, which is that like to chase that individual, like build a following, kind of thing, or get on a big, get on a, like write for a show or something like that and have that credit and use that credit. It kind of like success kind of begets success. So like some people, like once they have a big credit, they can do longer sets. And when they do longer sets, they can record everything and post stuff. And when you can record everything and post stuff, you can build a following. Like it kind of it builds on itself, but it's kind of stressful now. I feel like there's like a Gary Goldman thing about like the only thing limiting me getting better is just like the opportunity to do more of it. Whereas like the stage time is the impediment to me getting better, and I feel that deep in my bones. But for me, it's also like quality stage time where like I don't know if you feel this way, but it's like I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to turn down some bad gigs where I'm just
Oh,
like,
good
oh,
for
actually,
you.
that's a waste of my time
Yeah.
every once in a while. And like not all the time, but every once in a while, I'm like, oh, like 2 years ago, I would have been like all over this like
Yeah.
money suck. Yeah. But today, like, oh, I already had plans and I'll do this show instead. And it's fine. I'm
That's awesome.
trying to be
Yeah.
kinder to myself in that way.
That's a level in both your personal development and your comedy career. To be like,
Mm.
I don't need this gig that's like in Hoboken or whatever.
Hoboken is a perfect example. I think I've turned down a gig in Hoboken somewhat recently where it's like I already had a gig and it's like, oh, sure, this one pays $50, but like the stress and the pain of getting there to get the $50 is like just not worth it.
Speaking of which, how's Atlantic City? Are you still doing Atlantic City?
Yeah, I'm doing these gigs. So New York Comedy Club, who I'm passed with to do spots, I do a couple spots there a week. They own clubs, and they own a club in Atlantic City and they own a club in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I get to do those every once in a while, and they're both great for different reasons. Atlantic City is like a theater, so you walk out and it kind of feels like you're backstage. It feels like it's like a high school theater almost.
Okay.
Familiar. Where there's like lights and rope for all the tech equipment and stuff like that. It's like a functioning theater. They could have dance performances or whatever. So I've been doing that a little bit, and it's fine. It's a lot of like I get to host, which is kind of nice on the road sometimes because you're less eager to do all your material. Sometimes you're a little bit more flexible where like I'm the host. I'll like talk to whoever's in the front row, or like I'll ask a question and get to know them a little bit. Where sometimes as a feature where you're doing 20 minutes in the middle or half hour in the middle, you feel this pressure like I'm going to run through all my material and I'm going to do it in this order and I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that. And I remember like I had a really bad gig it was either Philly or Atlantic City where I was hosting. And so I just put less pressure on myself to like burn through all my material. And when I got there, they just like hated jokes. Like the only thing they wanted was for me to talk to them. Yeah. And I remember being like, oh, thank God I didn't spend all day today memorizing my half hour and putting it in an order, because I would have had to bail anyway. So it was kind of nice to put myself in a position where it's like, I'm just going to be present. I'm going to bring up the comics. It'll be fun. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the utility of the hosting job that gets you out of your own head. So I appreciated it in that moment.
That's cool. I haven't hosted before, but I've been listening to professional comics talk about it. And they're always like, hosting is a separate skill.
Totally separate skill.
You must exercise that muscle separately. And I'm like, okay, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Whenever I get there, you have to turn it on, turn it off, and interact with the audience.
Yeah. And you learn little tricks like if one comic is low energy or like they end like not on a great note, like maybe your job is to throw in a joke between the next comic. Or sometimes you're like, oh, this show's going to run long. I'm not going to do any time between comics. And I'm going to just like keep the show rolling because like what they need is momentum to get to the next guy. Mm. You learn these little tricks. I host once a month at QED Presents in Astoria. Mm-hmm. And it's a paid gig and it usually sells out. It's a Saturday night at 9:30. And I've like learned a lot of tricks along the way, and just in terms of like figuring out how to deal with different types of audiences and how to keep the show moving. It's a good skill, and it makes me appreciate a good host more when I see someone doing it really well. I'm like, oh, I want to try to be more like that guy.
Yeah, I love that you're first of all paying attention and like taking note during and after the fact of like, this is how I can be a better host. This is how it's going. Because I'm on shows where hosts don't seem like they're doing that, so I'm glad people are.
Yeah, as a host, like you fundamentally like have to care about how the show's going and how the audience is feeling.
Yeah.
You have to care. And yeah, you have to care. You have to treat it like it's your show. Mm-hmm. Kind of like your host. I heard somebody compare it to like you're hosting a dinner party.
Yes.
So you're trying to do that. And it's fun, and it's a little bit more high energy, and sometimes for me I'm like a little bit goofier when I'm hosting because I feel more of a I feel like more like it's I gotta show these guys a good time, where when I'm doing my like a 15-minute set or something like that, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna throw in this political joke because it's not my job to make sure the show is a party. It's my job to like try some material, try to get different people to laugh at different things. So I'm a little bit more adventurous when I just like have a spot, and maybe I'll do my political material. But when I'm hosting, sometimes I'm more likely to just like, are you guys on a date, like that kind of stuff, and try to make fun of the room.
And then
but sometimes
with them too.
Yeah, you bond with them. Oh my God. Can I tell this story? This is good.
Yeah,
So
please do.
somebody came to a show that I was hosting, and they were in their early 40s, I would say. Pretty attractive couple and like very drunk. And they ordered a bunch of food from QED, which is like, it's fine. People order food all the time, but it comes from like the place across the street because they don't have a kitchen.
Okay.
And so people don't normally order like, I don't know, like $50 worth of food. It's usually like, I'll get some chicken fingers and like it's fine. But they order like a whole bunch of food. And the guy comes up to me and he's like, hey, like at the end of the show, I'd like to propose to my girlfriend.
Oh my God.
Can I do that? And I'm like, like, you want to do that here? Like, okay, like I'm happy to help you. Like that'll be fun, I guess.
Is he wasted?
He's wasted, but I can't quite tell at this point like how wasted they are. But I'm like,
Okay.
oh, like they're drinking, but like they want to get engaged at the end. Like, oh, that'll be like a fun way to end the show. He's like, I don't want to be a distraction. Like, I don't want to do it before the show starts. Like, we'll do it right at the end.
Okay.
I was
So
like, okay.
You already know you can't trust this guy.
Yeah. Well, at this point,
I don't want to be a distraction.
yeah. Well, it was a red flag because it's like and subconsciously he knew he was going to be a distraction, but he said all the right things. So I was like, all right, we'll do it, whatever. So I get on stage. I'm on stage for 20 seconds, maybe less, maybe fewer, maybe 10 or 12 seconds. And already the woman that he's going to marry is loud and obnoxious and calling out and being real drunk. And as a host, one of my jobs is like, hey, like I'm the host, like I'll talk to whoever, I'm on my feet, we're having a good time. But when like I bring up each act, like make sure you listen because they're not here to like mess around with you. They're there to like do their jokes and work on their material and have fun. So I kind of like try to give her that ground rule, and she is just not having it. Like she does not care at all. And so the first comic goes up and she's kind of loud and they kind of deal with it and it's fine. And I send her a reminder between the first and second comic. I'm like, hey, like, remember, just talk to me. And she's like, got it. And the next comic, she starts like really talking. And so I get up there and I'm like, all right, like it's time for you to leave. So they start to like escort her out. And the audience is like cheering because they hate her so much.
Right.
Like they're just like, she's like ruined like 40 minutes of their night, just like being really loud and obnoxious. So they're like cheering. And I then have to tell the audience, I'm like, by the way, guys, like they tried to get engaged at the end of this show. And the audience is like, what? Like people are calling out. They're like, they wanted to like share their love with us. Like we hate them. And so they went from having this like trying to have like a tender moment in society to being the most hated people in Astoria in like 30 minutes. It was kind of beautiful.
It's kind of like a classic New York tale.
Yeah, they had such high hopes.
Seems like it. Yeah.
They thought they were somebody else.
Too wasted at a comedy show, thinking you are in the comedy show.
Oh, a nightmare. And it's also like Astoria is like mostly like family. It's not like you're in Midtown where it's like we're tourists, we're in from out of town, like we're gonna get blackout. We don't really know the rules. It's like you're in a community. Like people live here. Like this is a weird place to do this.
We're working class here.
Yeah, there's like there's a sense of like it's not suburb comedy necessarily, but it is like we live outside of the city, you know, where we're in a diverse neighborhood of working professionals. It's like very bizarre. I don't know what the equivalent neighborhood would be. Yeah, it's usually it's a lot of families who are like, we got a babysitter and this is like a cheap comedy show around the corner with no drink minimums, like, and we'll stay all night and it's kind of fun. So for them to like ruin it like that was so funny.
It's like Glendale.
Okay, cool. Glendale vibes.
Yeah, but we're definitely more polished in Glendale, and I don't know if we're working class, but you know,
that makes sense.
The story is cooler for sure. Yeah. LA, I don't know enough about LA to be like comparing it strictly to New York. I just know I'm afraid of real LA. Like I drove through it yesterday and I was like, I'm afraid. It's daylight and I'm afraid.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't know what's safe. I don't know if I should go into this dead end, you know.
Sure. It's so big in that way, right? And spread out. Like there's no way to know every corner of it.
And with traffic, you don't really explore a lot of it. So I just go to pockets every once in a while.
Sure, that makes sense.
I like West Hollywood. I like Melrose. I'm always there. That's where I do my comedy. That's where I drink my coffee.
Oh, beautiful.
Everywhere else is just a road.
Sure. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to eventually get out there for a little while. Maybe not to live, but maybe like 6 months or something.
You have to come hang.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And try to get on shows and do one show a night and that whole thing.
Find a sublet or crash on a couch and
Yeah, I do
Working
like
muscles.
driving and I do like nice weather. So there's a part of me that thinks I would like love it, and then there's a part of me that knows it's not for me. But we'll see. I don't know.
It's not for me either, but I'm trying to actively brainwash myself to be like, you're here now.
That's
Make the most
great.
of it.
Yeah, it's
Fall in
beautiful.
love and then leave in a few years.
That's great. That's a great
You
plan
know, it's not forever. Yeah.
for
So
sure.
tell me about the Fringe. Tell me about the Fringe.
Sure. So I worked on a solo show in 2019 that I brought to Edinburgh, and I called it The Whole
Right. I
Thing.
remember we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, and that was like kind of it's the show's like kind of like my comedy origin story, which is that I started comedy the day after I found out my best friend and my girlfriend were in love. A tale as old as
Okay.
time. And that was in 20 that this all happened in
It's a problem.
20 yeah, New Year's Eve turning into 2015, and I was living in Scotland then.
Mhm.
And so I did the show in 2019, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll like record it, maybe I'll put it out as a special. And then I did the Fringe Runs, which is like 25 shows in 25 days. It's a big arts festival. And
And this is
I got
Edinburgh because there are other ones.
yeah, we'll talk about it. I'm doing the Winnipeg Fringe also in July in Canada.
Okay.
So I did 25 shows in
Nice.
25 days basically, and it was really fun. And then I got home, and then that winter or that spring the pandemic happened, so like whatever I was going to do with the show kind of like all got put on hold for a year and a half. And then I started working on it again, and I'm working with a story producer, the great Ophira Eisenberg, who hosts for The Moth, and she's at the Comedy
Oh,
Cellar. She just did a set on James
that's
Gordon. She's like
awesome.
amazing. So I started to work with her on the story a little bit, and she
Mhm.
helped me to kind of like just ask important questions about the characters. And I realized that like I liked my show a lot, and I thought it had a lot of potential, and I particularly like the beginning and I like the ending. But the middle, I was like, oh, I kind of like lose focus on what the show's about a little bit. And so I started to refocus it. And what I kind of discovered was it's a show about like male friendship, like what it means to be a friend with another straight dude, which doesn't seem to get a ton of um, thought or coverage or play in our society. So I started writing a lot of jokes about like what guy friendships are like,
Oh,
and what my friends from home are like, and what my musical theater friends from college are like, and all these things. And so I've put it together
nice.
again, kind of like the 2.0 version. And in 2020, I was supposed to do the Atlanta Fringe, which was like a week of shows in Atlanta, the Pittsburgh Fringe, which was like 3 shows or 3 or 4 shows in Pittsburgh, and then 2 weeks in Winnipeg for the Winnipeg Fringe, and then the Edinburgh Fringe, which is the granddaddy of them all, 25 shows in August. And they all got canceled. But Winnipeg deferred me. So July 11th, we're recording this June 29th, so not too far from now.
Yeah.
July 11th, I fly to Winnipeg, and I'll do 2 weeks of shows there. So I get to do the show 9 times.
Nice.
And it's going to be the most formal workshop I have of it, because I've done the show now in 2022 4 or 5 times. I did it a couple times in New York, and I did it in Dallas, Texas. And I get to I mean, 9 times in 2 weeks is just enough time to really solidify different sections and rewrite and send a copy of the video to my director and talk about blocking, and just, who else gets to run an hour of stand up 9 times in 2 weeks? It's pretty special. So I'll do
Yeah.
that and really start to hammer it down. And then by the time you see it, so the last week of July, then I'm doing a festival in Manhattan for 5 shows. So I'll get 5 more shows in New York to really hammer it out in a different way. And then
Hammer it
I'll
out
go
at
to
home.
Edinburgh. Yes, hammer it out at home for an American audience in New York. And it's like an American theater going audience, because it's through this company called 59 East 59th Street, which is typically a theater company, but they give people who are doing the Edinburgh Fringe an opportunity to use their spaces and like make some money. So that'll be nice, because they have a bunch
Mhm.
of theater subscribers who get like discounted tickets or whatever. So I'm already selling tickets, not on my own Instagram post celebrity, but because of just like they have patrons, mostly I imagine Upper East Siders. So I'll do the show 5 times, and then
It's
I'll
not
bring
'cause
it to Edinburgh.
they don't like your takes on the Olive Garden. It's something else.
Yeah, it's something. Exactly, not people who don't know me from from my chain restaurant opinions. But I get a chance to like really work out this thing, and then eventually I'm going to film it and probably put it on YouTube as like a first
Do
data
it.
point in my life, and then work on the next one. is kind of my plan.
That's sick. I love that. So you're like fully touring this hour? It's an hour?
Yeah, it's about 50 minutes right now. Give or take. I'm moving some things around. Even as of today, I was like, oh, like this should be the first joke. Like, don't hide what the show's about. Dive right into the friendship material. So I'm making tweaks as we go.
Yeah.
But it's a fun thing to kind of structure. And I feel like I'm still like 2 or 3 kind of discoveries about it away from making it what I really want it to be. But people seem to like it. People enjoy the story from what I can tell. And then the goal is to just make it as punchy as
workshopping.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I get an opportunity to just like do it a bunch, which I'm very grateful for. Yeah, it's a good time.
So is Ophira Eisenberg, is she like what's her role? Is she a mentor?
Yeah, she's kind of like, I guess I would describe it as story producing, where we have these sessions and I'll send her. What I do is, you might appreciate this. What I do is I bought a camera, so I record everything visually, but I also record on my phone. And then what I do after either a good show or a chance to do the whole show is I'll send out the audio to get it transcribed. And then I'll clean it up a little bit because the transcription is not like 1,000% perfect. But then I have a transcript and I can just see what I actually said as compared to the script. And I can see where I improvised, and I can see where I forgot something, or I can see where I added something, whatever it is. And then I'll send that off to Ophira, and she'll take some notes, and then we'll meet and we'll talk about it. And it's a really healthy collaboration.
Cool.
She's a good listener. And I also did a session with this guy named Greg Wallach, who is a story producer out in LA. And he worked on Hassan Minaj's first show, Homecoming King, which I really loved. And he worked on his new show, The King's Jester, which I saw at Radio City, which I really recommend. And he kind of story produces for Hassan and Moses Storm and a couple other guys, Asif Ali, people out in LA. And his was really big players. Yeah. And like, it's not cheap, but it's not prohibitively expensive to do, a session with one of these people. And they're really helpful. We start asking questions about like this character emotionally in this moment. What do you think he was feeling? Or what do you think she was feeling? And trying to incorporate that, not to say like this person is like, not to kind of like put words in someone's mouth, but to just have empathy for that person or that character in that moment. And so it's like a fun exercise. It really feels more like writing a pilot sometimes, or writing a short movie at times. And it does feel like stand-up, like a lot of ways, like the jokes are the things that come last, even though I want it to be really funny. So that's an interesting kind of change, as opposed to like, if I just sent somebody my stand-up, it would be like, okay, can we add 10 punchlines, this is a little bit more thoughtful, which is kind of what I like.
Let's cut out half of it.
Yeah, sometimes you have to cut out jokes that work or jokes that are meandering, and that's kind of frustrating too, because as a stand-up, it's just like, how tight can I make this? And as a story show or solo show person, it's like, how can I narrativize this?
This is so exciting. I can't wait to see it. And then
thank you.
If it feels like a film, you're welcome. If it feels like a film now, it might be a film later, right?
Yeah. I mean, Birbiglia turned his first show into a movie.
Okay.
Give or take,
LA's
beat for beat.
You, Gabe.
I know. So we'll see about that. I am already, and then why don't we talk about this? I've already kind of figured out what my next solo show is going to be about, which is I'd like to do it like an Adam Ruins Everything style show about American healthcare. That's like part narrative and part like John Oliver episode kind of, but in person with real life stories and anecdotes and stuff like that. So that's like that's like further down the road. That's like after I film this one, but that's kind of the next thing that I'm pursuing.
Please do that one, because we need some takes on American healthcare.
Yeah.
That would be nice for me.
I know I didn't realize that comedians talk about on stage the things they talk about in real life for a long time, and like I'm constantly complaining and talking about healthcare, and so I'm like, oh, maybe I should write some jokes about this, and so I started to, and it's kind of working. Just like the material. The other fun thing about Edinburgh is I'm hosting a show in the evening. So I'm doing my show in the afternoon, and then at night I'm hosting a show. So I get to do all that hosting stuff, but I
Cool.
also get to try new material. So every night I'll do some healthcare stuff. I'll do some USA versus Scotland stuff. I'll improvise. So I'm excited about that too. Not just for the content, the
Yeah.
hashtag content of it, but also for the opportunity to just like talk a lot.
To be a host, to switch up mentally, physically what you're doing. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be good.
Okay. I have a few remarks. Male
Please.
friendship.
Yeah.
Such a hot topic. I mean, I see it in my boyfriend and his social circle where I'm more social than he is, and I'm not social. So I don't know what's up with male friendship. Like, why is it so fractured? Like, it's gotten broken, I think, over the years, over our lifetime.
Totally. I mean, like, and in some ways it feels broken. And I have close friends, and the thing I'm working on right now is I have these friends from high school, and I'm like, oh, I actually don't know anything about them. And like we hang out all the time, but if like you
Yeah.
really wanted me to know anything about them, like I know what we like to do together. And so one of the things I started doing with this show is I started working with there's a professor, this guy Jeffrey Greif, who he works at like a social work graduate school at the University of Maryland, and we've had some conversations about how like male friendship is typically shoulder to shoulder. I don't know if your boyfriend would agree with this, but like male friendship is typically shoulder to shoulder in the sense that like there's an activity and we're all around it.
There's
Where
always an activity. Yeah.
yeah, it's either like we're watching I don't want to be too stereotypical, but it's like we're watching football, we're playing a video game, and we're
Yeah.
not looking at each other. We're just kind of next to each other. And then typically,
Video
stereotypically,
games are rampant.
Yeah, you
It's like
because you don't
headphones
have
on.
you don't have to look at them at all. You're looking at a screen.
Mhm.
And then with women,
Shooting your little
typically,
gun.
yeah, it's kind of beautiful. Like during the pandemic, Fortnite kind of like saved me in that it was the only way to like communicate with my friends. And like every once in a while, it would kind of slip out like, oh, today was hard or whatever, but not really. They weren't emotionally driven
But
conversations. It was more like a
you just said
distraction.
you just said slip out. So you're like, sometimes I was emotionally vulnerable by accident.
Yeah, never on purpose. I mean, yeah, and I don't think that makes them bad people. We're just like we weren't socialized for that really. But typically women, at least according to this like these studies that he's done, women typically when they have friendship, it's like we get a cup of coffee and we sit down, and the activity kind of like is each other. We're looking at each other, and it's more intimate and it's conversational. We talk about our lives and our goals and our fears and our families. Where like guy friendship is like there's a movie, and then we like watch stuff blow up, and that's great too. So
yes, there's no eye contact in male friendship.
yeah, there's very little eye contact.
Very little bearing of the souls. Very little like this is a deep convo. It's like this is a partial convo that we get to when we're not playing video games.
Totally. And so that's the thing I'm kind of exploring like the first third of my show before I get into like the plot element of it, which is just like jokes and thoughts about the way men, particularly straight men that I, like in my purview, kind of like socialize.
Interesting. I find that fascinating. It's like a good psychology textbook deep dive.
Yeah, I bought a textbook to talk so I can like kind of like read up and talk about it. It's sort of interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, because sometimes you need to know like the structural foundation of the story you're telling. Like you want to know the neuroscience sometimes.
Yeah, it's nice to have a scientific backing on it as opposed to just kind of like guessing wildly. I think that's why I started. Because I found this guy because I was Googling just like male friendship studies, male friendship. And I found this podcast called The Art of Manliness, which is not necessarily a podcast that I would listen to on my own volition, or at least like independent of this project. But I started listening and I kind of enjoyed it. And there was these guys that talk about all different types of things, from like dating and asking women out, and relationships with men and their relationships with their fathers, and male and male friendship. And so I listened to this episode where they interviewed this, I guess he's a social worker, and he had done all this research. And so I found this guy, and it was nice to have at least some scientific backing to demonstrate the things I was already kind of suspecting about male friendship, which is that we don't get emotionally as close as some other straight men, particularly, don't get as emotionally close as some other combinations of people, I guess, if that makes sense.
Hmm. I think you're not, like you said, you're not socialized as a man to like dig into your personal bullshit. Like, what's going on with your family? How's your parents? Like, that's not a natural question man to man. Like, women talk about that a lot more. So I'm glad you're digging deep and researching this so much. It's going to help everyone who sees your show.
I hope so. I hope so. I am always trying to build the material out.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to think like even if something doesn't make the show, like a detail or something like that, it informs the way I go about the show. So I like to think it's all kind of important. Hopefully, we'll see.
It is. Yeah, it comes out in interviews or in later work that you produce.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And my second question is you're so motivated, you're getting shit done, you're connecting with the right people, spending your money wisely, your time, you're touring essentially. How are you this motivated? What are you drinking?
Oh God, I don't feel motivated at all. I have so many just awful days where I don't get anything done.
Really? You seem like you're
Yeah.
on fire.
It's very inconsistent. I mean, like, I have a day job that's like very exhausting. Or like it's not very exhausting, but I just like having to be there, having to sit there is
Mm-hmm.
exhausting. Um,
You have to put energy into
and
that.
yeah, I have to put energy into that. Um, I'm not doing as much stand up as I used to, just in terms of like raw numbers. Like I'm not going to like 30 mics a week or anything crazy like that anymore. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. So, which is to say that like I spend a lot of time just like resting and recovering and like trying to do things for myself too. I don't want you to feel like I'm this like uh motivated or purely motivated like kind of like beast person, because I certainly am not.
Okay.
um but I
You're
guess
not
like
channeling Tony
creatively,
Robbins or anyone.
yeah, I'm definitely not Tony Robbins, man. But creatively, like this is the thing I've wanted to do for a really long time, and
Mm-hmm.
now I finally just like have an opportunity to do it because Winnipeg got pushed back 2 years and Edinburgh also. And so it's kind of all been building to this. You kind of caught me at the exact right moment where I'm like, the next 6 weeks, I have it all figured out. And then after that, like in September, like I have no idea like what my life will be like. Um, and I'm trying to figure that out. Um, but um, but I enjoy. I guess like I singularly enjoy doing the show, and what I've been missing is like an opportunity to do it and like figure it out. And so I guess talk to me on September 1st. See how figured out my life is. But for these two
Yeah.
months, I'm gonna be okay.
I'm taking all of this in because it seems like you're high on adrenaline. You've waited 2 years. Now the doors are open again. This is a show you're
Yeah.
bringing back and revising. So like you have source material and you're fine tuning it and adding to it. And I don't know. I feel like this is a really good time for you, Gabe.
Thank you.
You
Yeah.
don't
I
have
guess now that I'm
yeah.
saying it out loud, you're like, you are like my therapist. I'm like, yeah, these 2 months are gonna be really good.
You don't have to figure out September. Like that'll come and it's actually, in my opinion, better to have no expectations and then
Hmm.
figure it out slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on like I need to get 5 reviews from newspapers in Scotland or like um whatever the goal is. I'm trying to just like put on the best show I can. um Also, the first time I did it, I had no PR representation. I did it all myself. I like didn't know what I was doing. I had a bad time slot. I basically
Right.
made every mistake you could make. And this time around, I don't have she's not the like 4,000 pounds PR. But she's very good and she's like pretty cheap, because she works with comedians and she like gets us. So I at least have somebody advocating for me. So that kind of feels good too this time around, which is that like I'm a little bit older. Um, and I have somebody advocating for the show to at least get like maybe 1 or 2 reviewers into the show to see it. And
Yeah.
then maybe, a couple good reviews, get some more people to come to the show. None of that would be a bad thing. But I'm trying to temper my expectations and just like focus on the show because I kind of July is about working the show and August is kind of about sharing it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's so exciting. And you had to do that first Edinburgh Fringe, and kind of have a crappy time because you have to suffer and learn in order to have a better time later. So
Totally.
you're coming back stronger.
Yeah, 2 days into the last year's Fringe, I was like, I am screwed. Like, this is going to be so hard. And this time around, I just like,
it's a hard thing to take on.
it's a hard thing to take on. And it's also really fun and exciting in other ways. Like, you're seeing shows, you're meeting people. I became friends with a pro wrestler. I saw these like insane British shows that like you wouldn't believe, where they use like crazy technology, or they do acrobatics or magic or juggling or whatever it is. So it's exciting in that way too, like not just like quote unquote career wise, it's also just like a fun comedy experience. And I recommend, if anybody listening can make it to even a week at the Edinburgh Fringe, you will not be disappointed. It's kind of amazing.
I know you're selling it so well. I want to know. I know someone in Scotland.
Yeah, you should. It's the coolest.
Yeah, it sounds so fun. Man, I can't wait to see it in New York for sure. And then I'll let you know about Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely come to the New York one. That'll be a good time.
Definitely. So it's Therapy Roulette. You told me you're not in therapy. Why not? And how's your mental health?
That's a great question. Why not is mostly I had a therapist. I tried to do therapy during the pandemic, and I had a guy who was just like so bad at it. And I've tried a few times. I was talking about him.
I think.
Oh yeah, he was so bad. Oh God, it was terrible. I'm glad we can follow up on that terrible therapist. And
doesn't always work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out. And then over the last 2 months, maybe I've like tried a couple times, and like I had an appointment somewhere, and then they didn't take my insurance, and I just like wasn't ready to spend $150 on somebody I didn't know. Right off the bat, I was like, oh, I'll find somebody. And then even as of recently, as of last week, I was like, maybe I should find somebody. And then it's like, well, I'm going away for 6 weeks. So like, I don't know how much good it'll do me, but it's a goal of mine to be in it for September, because I may have talked about this last time, but I was very close with my college therapist, and we're still friendly. He's a good man, Dr. David Walden. And so I'd like to find somebody else in my life to kind of like fill that hole, because it's very important. And I know I'll be a better person if I can figure that out.
Yeah, it's helping me be a better person. Like, I'm so much happier and uplifted because I have a therapy outlet where I'm like, I can save up all my shit for my bi-weekly session and then figure it out in an hour.
Yeah.
And it helps a lot.
Yeah, I like having that, like an intentional hour, even just an hour away from my phone.
Yes.
Would be nice, let alone somebody who's like concentrating on my life and my problems.
Right. Well, the no phone time, you can handle that, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even that would be a nice start. But yeah, I'm not in it right now, but it's kind of always on my mind. It's kind of always like weighing on me that I should be in it. And so I think the message of your show is a good one.
Yeah, the message is everyone needs to do therapy, especially if you like haven't done it in a while and you're starting to get that inkling like I should go back, and it takes a long time to find someone. So get started.
Yeah, that's the plan. Like anything else, you got to have a couple duds. And then I had somebody good, and they changed my health insurance on me, and I had to lose him. So yeah, I wish it were as easy as, I wish it were easier, I guess is my complaint. But also, if I really cared about it, maybe I would be finding somebody.
It should be a lot easier. It's another thing you can throw in your show about healthcare.
Yeah, it's hard to find, and it's a very intimate thing. It's not like if somebody's checking out my broken arm, like I don't necessarily like care about their politics, but if they're talking to me about what informs my life, like suddenly that stuff might be important, you know, or I might care more about it.
Sometimes.
If that makes sense.
I mean, living in LA, I have to put my political beliefs a little aside, where I'm like, I live in LA, everyone's bonkers. Like, everyone has their own beliefs. They all think they're protecting their lands and their rights. And yeah, we are, but like also we're a collective.
Sure.
So I've learned to get along with a lot of different types of people living out here. And my therapist is probably, I think she's liberal, but talking to anyone who's of sound mind would be helpful. So I'm glad she sees similar to me the way the world works. But even if she was like, you know, Mitch McConnell's wife. I think it would be helpful.
Mrs. McConnell. That's so funny.
Just
he
spilling your brain out helps a lot.
yeah. In some ways, having such a personal relationship with my college therapist was really good. It was a very humanistic kind of way to do therapy. But I also think it's possible that it would be good for me. Like the guy I had pre-pandemic who I liked was he was kind of less emotional and more of just like a sounding board. And I didn't really know a ton about him, which had its pros and cons. But I think I need to be more open to that like it can just be somebody who listens and throws things back, as opposed to somebody who like intimately understands me and like has had similar life experiences that they're willing to share. I think there's different ways to skin a therapy cat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess you have to make a short list of like what you're looking for in a therapist, and then how important are those qualities? Do they take your insurance? And then honestly, you're gonna have like one or two options. So
yeah, after all that. I know I've tried to make that list before, and then I'm like, but is that thing actually important to me? Like I don't know. Like I it's kind of like I'll know it when I see it in like a therapist who's working for me. Like it's hard for me. Maybe I'm just like too left-brained about it, but I'm just like yeah, it's for me it's like more of a feel thing than it is a check boxes thing. But it's, I don't know, maybe I should write some boxes.
Maybe presenting yourself as a comic up front would be helpful, because my therapist is a funny person, and that helps so much because she makes me laugh, and we get really dark, and I'm just like, you get it, we can get dark and it's okay. We don't have to sit there. we can laugh.
Yeah, that's important too. That's super important.
Yeah. I've been sharing her wisdom as much as I can. And also, I don't think you are someone who gets fucked up on the weekends, but it helps if you can just talk to someone who's willing to listen, even if they're fucked up, and like maybe that would help.
Yeah, I don't drink. But yeah, that's a nice aspect of it. Of sobriety too. But it's tricky. I was thinking the other day, I was really stressed, and I was like, I wish I just like had a thing that I knew that would calm me down, like some people like have a glass of red wine at night. I'm like, I don't really have that. That's like particularly healthy.
An anti-anxiety coping mechanism.
Yeah, not really. Not in the sense that of like, oh, I'll just take like 10 milligrams of an edible and like drift to sleep. Like that's not really my vibe. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it should be, maybe it could be. But I would like something certainly more formal than like ice cream or something, like it would be nice to have something more contemplative, I guess. Than
but then you have to
simple.
look at like, what are my sober options? Like meditation
could be good. Right now it's a lot of like diet ginger ale. Exercise is good. Yeah, that's probably better than what I'm doing. Yeah, I was on a real hot streak. Diet ginger ale is great. You can't beat it.
Yeah. That stuff's never selling out. You can always find it.
It's never selling out. That's very funny. Yeah. Why is it always? It's never sold out.
No one's trying to curb the ginger ale intake.
I hear you. We all have our vices.
Yeah, but I just mentioned the fucked up person aspect because I came back from a music festival recently. And in the daytime, strangers would come up to me, and like it would be like a quick little therapy sesh with the stranger because they were coming down from whatever they did the night before. And I'm like, oh, I'm about to learn all about your life in 10 minutes. But it was cool. It was cool that people could be so open, even if they just wanted to like get coked up later. I was there for it.
Yeah, I feel like when you live in a city like New York or LA, or you're at a music festival, there's just like a lot of characters all the time.
So many.
And if you're willing to be like 2% more extroverted than you normally want to be, you can meet some like insane people, and insane in like sometimes a good way.
No, I want to say they're friends. Like I'm up again.
That's exciting.
Yeah. But you can be vulnerable on the fly, especially in New York, if you want to be.
For sure.
Yeah. So do you have anything you want to vent about? Is there a topic that you've premeditated?
I want to vent about. I will say, so I just got back from a trip. I was with two boys. Used to work at the summer camp for kids with illnesses, and I took these two boys who are brothers to a muscular dystrophy conference. And so I traveled to Arizona across the country with these two boys in wheelchairs. And it occurred to me, I've spent a fair amount of time with people with disabilities in public, in big cities and stuff like that. And by far, I feel like the worst I've ever been treated in society has always been when I'm with disabled people or people who are disabled. Whether it's like somebody in line at the security pretended they had to rush us to catch a flight and like made us feel bad for taking too long, like little things like that. So like that's a thing that's been on my mind recently, which is like when I go through the world as like a straight white guy, um, with like a high voice, people aren't that rude to me. People are generally like pretty kind. But the minute I have two boys with power wheelchairs, like I am an inconvenience and I'm inconveniencing them. So that's the thing that's been like I've been thinking about the last couple of days that kind of like pisses me off.
Yeah, that sucks. I think I saw a picture of you traveling by train, or did you fly?
We flew, um
Okay.
and like had to go through metal detectors and pat downs um and like every once in a while like somebody like gives you a wink and like helps you out. But for the most part, like a lot of times people are pretty inflexible and like don't care or like don't even want to look, let alone like help. And so yeah, that's a thing that just like it changes you when you have to traverse the world with people who are disabled, and it makes you kind of see the world through their perspective. um and I've had both of the boys tell me like, oh, the world is, or like our disability is not the problem, like people are the problem. When a city isn't accessible is a problem. When a person behind a desk is inflexible with our needs, that's a problem. But like the disability itself is just inherently a disability. um and so that's a thing I think about a lot. And then also, I will say, like, a lot of people were really helpful. Like, they moved our seats so we could be next to each other. Like, little things like that were helpful. Um, but also, it's just like, oh, nobody's treated me that poorly in public for no reason in a long time. And I think it's certainly correlated and connected to traveling with people who just like take a little bit longer to do things. So that's a thing
Yeah.
that I've been ranting about in my head. And it's been nice to to say in a public forum.
Oh yeah, it's such a big problem. I mean, added to that healthcare agenda, like disability in America is it's like being old or
Mm,
something else that we can't seem to come up with a solution. It's like if you're old, you're useless. If you have a disability, you're useless. Like that's how we
hmm.
treat people sometimes.
Absolutely.
We don't
I mean,
accommodate.
we don't accommodate. I mean, my one buddy Austin like gets Social Security because he's has a disability, and then they like cap how much money he can earn outside of that. So I'm like, oh, is this America
Right.
where you can still like try to make money? But like, no, they're like, no, you have a disability, like this is the most money you can make without us taking this away. And it's like, shouldn't we be incentivizing people to like try to make money in different ways? Like, Austin's a super talented guy in a lot of different ways, and he's just like not allowed to work in the way that he would want to if he wants to keep his benefits. So there's like little things like that. You're totally right, that like kind of maybe belong in the healthcare show, or at least like belong in an agenda about like making the society better. But those are things that have been kind of like
Yeah.
pissing me off.
Yeah, I will send this to Joe Biden. Like, what are we doing?
There's no way he knows what a
But it
podcast
sucks.
is.
In LA, I doubt it. Yeah. In LA, like we care about the disabled people because we don't want to get sued. Like on TV shows,
Mm.
we're like, how do we not get sued today? And
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
you try to accommodate wheelchairs and elevator requests and all that. But no one is giving you compassion. Like
Mm.
there's no training on how to be kind and listen more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It comes down to like certain people that you can see it almost immediately when they like kind of wink at you or they give you like a nod. Like they like, hey, I'm a person who's in a position of power for this one moment, and like I will help you. Whether it's like, I don't
mhm.
know, hey, let me take you through this line, it's shorter, or let me move your seats on the plane, or whatever it is. You can kind of see when people you can see when like that kindness is coming out, and those people are always kind of like my heroes. Um, but a lot of times people are pretty inflexible also.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I don't know if the solution is like more, bless you. I don't know if the solution is more animated disabled people so we get more familiar with them. That's like my immediate solution.
Sure, whatever it
I don't
is.
know.
Well, somebody I saw a tweet yesterday that was like, oh, like somebody was like, I mean, they were in a European city and they're like, there's so many disabled people here. And then somebody else was like, oh no, they exist in your city. Your just city is not accessible, so they stay at home. And I was like, oh, that's definitely true in New
Right.
York. New York is so not accessible, that there are so many disabled people who are just not leaving their house.
I think it's most of America.
Mm,
But yeah, in a city, the heart of being in a city is like participating in walking around in city life, especially New York. So
hmm.
yeah, you're kind of like you're outside the community all the time.
Totally. It's very isolating.
Yeah. I love that you did that though with the two boys. Was that of your own volition or were you like in a program?
I was their camp counselor, and then we kind of stayed close post camp, texting or social media or whatever. And then every once in a while, like we would go on trips that they would organize. And Austin's family's been really great, where like I'm signed up through to like work for them because they get like hours for personal care assistance. So like this trip was like in a certain sense a job. Like I was getting paid by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to like help them out. So it's not completely and totally selfless. Like in some sense I was working. But yeah, I mean, like I care about those
So you
boys a lot.
chose to do that work.
Yeah, and like they asked me, they were like, hey, can you pop up
That's
here?
awesome.
And so um
And you're their friends. Like you're
yeah,
honestly giving your own time to help them do something they want to do.
for sure. And that's like I have a good relationship with them, and they're adults now. When I met them, Max was 11 and Austin was 15, and now they're in their 20s. And so we have more adult conversations now. We can be more honest with each other. We're out in the real world. It's not like I'm a camp counselor and like there's certain things you can't or shouldn't talk about. Like basically everything's on the table. So it's fun to have that kind of like mature adult relationship with them too, where we can swear and talk about adult things.
It's not all arts and crafts anymore.
It's not all arts and crafts. No.
That's awesome. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Do you have time to spin the roulette wheel and get a
spin the
question?
wheel. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Oh, I love it.
So lately these have been a little deep. Let's see what you get. Okay, we'll do this one. I did this one a few episodes ago, but let's do it again.
Sweet.
What's something you've always wanted to do? And if you're not going to do it now, when will you do it?
Oh, that's a great question. For a long time, it was a marathon, and I did that. Check.
Okay. I remember you had a bit about it.
Yeah, I still do that bit. For a while, was that? It's a great question. Comedically, I had a dream about this last night. It's so embarrassing.
What do you do after a marathon?
You do nothing. Yeah, it's kind of great. I was so stiff, I like couldn't move. And I had to vote in the primary, and I was like waddling into the Homestead gym to vote in the primary because I couldn't move any muscles. That was one for a while. Comedically, I think I'd like to do a late night set on TV. That's a goal of mine. Let me think if I could think of something like non-comedic. I think a triathlon could be fun. I've never fancied myself a swimmer, and I think that would be like a fun challenge to figure that out. Maybe not like an Ironman, but I know I could probably figure out the running and the biking. I'm going to sound annoying, but the biking comparatively doesn't seem that hard. But the swimming I think would like destroy me in a certain sense. So I think I would like to do that at some point. That's like, whether it's a goal I'm actively pursuing, it's not, but that's like definitely on my mind.
Do you know how to swim?
I do know how to swim. You know what's funny?
Okay.
My dad learned how to swim when I was a kid, and he was in his late 30s, and so he was really. And you know why he learned to swim? He learned to swim because he was like, if the kids are in the pool, I want to be able to like save them if like they can't swim or something. And so we were in Florida and he got lessons and he learned. So I'd like to learn.
awesome.
I'd like to figure that out. Yeah. Like a short one, a short triathlon.
How to pull off a triathlon?
Yeah, I think that could
so
be pretty fun.
When do you think that could be on your calendar?
That's a great question. My life, just in terms of like my jobs and stand up and stuff like that, I think I would like it to be like a little bit more stable in terms of like have a routine with like work and apartment stuff. But in the next couple of years, I think maybe by the time I'm 35, that's something I'd like to like figure out. I'm 30 now. And like find a race and a date. I'm a big like I need a due date kind of person. I'm very bad theoretically. If you were like, oh, Gabe, there's a New York triathlon September 2023, you should do it. I think if I had that circled and I found a place with a pool to start swimming, I could figure that out. But like in like the theory of it without a due date is very difficult for me.
Just having it on the bucket list without
like
a timeline. You need that timeline.
I need a timeline. I'm a big it's due on Thursday. I will plan my life around getting it done for Thursday.
Oh, I hear you. Woman with a podcast, I hear you. Gotta get it out.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you quickly about the late night set. When will you do the late night set? That needs approvals, but
yes, that is in some ways out of my hands. But you know, a late night set typically is like a pretty introductory set to like who you are. And so I write a lot of jokes that are pretty autobiographical. Like very rarely do I write just like a joke about tables or mattresses or like things outside of me. It's usually all me. And so in some ways I feel like, oh, like my material kind of like shapes up for that. And, you know, I've had a few friends do Fallon this year. I had a few friends do Corden this year. And so those are the two that are kind of putting a lot of comics up. And so I think maybe that's one of my goals in the next few months is to at least get those 5 minutes together and send them to the right people so that I can start taking that step. That's a thing that's like, hopefully within the next year, I have like solid progress towards that, maybe even 6 months that I'm at least in communications with the right people.
Okay. Working on it in the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, we'll get through Edinburgh.
Not like you need another comedy goal right now.
Yeah, I know. That's tough. Well, it's funny. Like a solo show is 50, 60 minutes and a late night set's between like 4 and 6. And so it would be interesting to like switch back to that and go micro after going so macro.
Yeah.
To just like, it's so funny. People talk about late night sets with such reverence sometimes. And I'm like, oh, it's just like a bunch of sentences. Like it's not anything. Like
it's literally 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's like 6 paragraphs. Like people, and once you have it too, it's like this thing that never goes away kind of, where it's like, oh, you did stand up on Letterman. Like you can work this club or whatever. So it's like a currency in this weird way in stand up that I'd like to have.
It could get you past at other places. For
sure. Oh, I did the Tonight Show. That's like, it's not a bad thing to have a Tonight Show credit.
No. Yeah, I see that in your future.
I hope so. I appreciate you rooting for me. You and all my Cheesecake Factory fans.
Yeah, Garden City strong.
Yeah, good. GC football #1.
Oh yeah, love the football. Gabe, this is the end. Please tell us upcoming tour dates and where to find you online. Anything you want to promote.
Yeah, just follow me on Instagram and or YouTube is great. Just Gabe Mollica. I posted a bunch of jokes on TikTok if you want to see some of those. And my big dates are July 11th, 2 weeks, so through the 25th, I guess. I'm in Winnipeg, Canada, and then the last 5 days of July, I'm in Manhattan doing my solo show. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are at 6:30. Saturday, the 30th, and Sunday, the 31st, are at 4:30. And then if you're in Edinburgh at all during August, I will be performing 2 shows a day, 1 p.m. and 11 p.m. Come to those or tell your friends who are in those cities to come check it out. It'll be fun.
Yeah, if you know anyone going to the Fringe, check out Gabe Mollica.
Please do. And all our Canadian listeners. Drive wherever Winnipeg is, go drive to it.
It sounds like a made up city. Not
I
gonna
know
lie.
it's probably not real. It's north of Minnesota, which I didn't know there was anything north of Minnesota, but apparently it's Winnipeg. So go figure.
Okay, so bring a jacket.
Yes, I know, even in July.
How do we find these dates? How do we
It's
find
in
ticket
the
links?
it's in the link in my bio, baby. Everything's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, real show businessy. I have a link tree. So check that stuff out. It's easy to just follow me on Instagram. I'm gonna be posting a bunch.
Very professional. Well, thank you so much, Gabe,
Oh
for
yeah.
taking the time.
Oh, thank you, Michele. This is always such a pleasure. Love the pod. Listen when I can, and I'll be happy to share this when it's time to release. This will be nice. This is nice promotion. This worked out really well, timing wise.
Glad to cross promote. It's always
Yeah.
a true joy, and I'm happy to play therapist.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Allegedly.
When we do this a third time in like 3 years, hopefully I'll have a therapist by then, and I'll be running triathlons.
Yes, I mean that's going to be a requirement.
Yeah, please hold me accountable.
Okay, I got you. Well, thank you, Gabe.
My pleasure, Michele. It was really fun.